So I'm just doing another step of this watercolor of flowers. It's the same for all three, whether it's black and white, monochromatic, or local color. Once we have very carefully selected, in this case local color, an image that has very complex color, the kind of color you wonder what it's made from. It's not like boom. You know, boom is only good surrounded by subtle. Those moments of almost red-ish, pink, maybe bright, those are the splurts. So watercolor is all about subtle, transparent, and layers, particularly dry layers. There's a lot of dry time in between. Strategy, leaving things overnight, avoiding areas, painting around areas, saving highlights in areas, opportunities for blending, opportunities for leaving white. It's a timing thing, and it's a one step, step back, one step, step back. It's not a like acrylic or drawing in any way, shape, or form. So the drawing part is. But so you pick all three, pick flowers, and then I went over all these gestural methods to get to a place where you feel pretty comfortable with proportions, starting with pencil, moving up to colored pencil, moving up to highlighters, eventually marker, whatever. And it's just to get the placement, just like it would be on a grid drawing and then a transfer. But the transfer, as you saw, was the homemade. And I missed a few petals, and I went a little dark on a couple spots. But overall, I think the transfer went pretty well, pretty light. And if I need to refer to the drawing, I will. But you know what's cool? And I don't recommend it for this project because we want to at least have three different flowers. We want to have three. But the beauty of having this drawing is you could do several versions of the same drawing transferred to practice. So, or if you're doing a series in some other class or whatever, if you were doing the same drawing but different approaches. But we're not doing that for these three. But if you wanted to do one over, like if this one got ruined, or you wanted to try again, or when I say ruined, it's always overworked. When something's overworked, it's ruined. You can't save it, really, unless you go into mixed media and stuff like that. If something's heavy-handed and overworked and there's no white left on it, it has to go in the garbage, sadly. So let's say that happened. You overdid it, there's no white, you were too heavy-handed, whatever. You have to throw it out. That's it. The painting goes. But that's all right. It's part of the process. Get the drawing back out. Redo. That way you have it on hand and you don't have to redraw it every time you want to redo. So I'm just going to set that aside in case I need it. And it's already got the carbon thingy on the back. Alright, so you saw that I feel pretty good about this. It should be light enough for you to see, but really hard for anyone else to. It should be light enough to kind of squint a little and see. If it's not, well, this eraser's no good. If I had a clean eraser, I would definitely erase a lot of this stuff. And I will. I just won't treat this yet, but I'll erase it later with a clean eraser. I have one somewhere and I'll look for it. But I'm pretty pleased. It's not terrible. You know, I'm gonna go with it because it's light enough. And again, I didn't get every little piece that I wanted, but that's all right. And I'm glad. Don't trace things that are mushy. This thing back there, mush mosh. There's no reason, because if you, or like this line, if you put that line on your transfer, you're doomed because it's light. And I wouldn't even put that. The only lines I dealt with were the ones I could see pretty clearly. But you don't want to outline things that you can't see. If it's blurry, leave it alone. We'll paint this. I don't feel the need to draw this at all. I only drew it at the beginning to give me a sense of where things fell. But definitely don't transfer a line you can't see. Just barely transfer. Alright, I'm just going to do some technique here. And it's really it's really relevant in a flower drawing to use wet and wet, which is, remember, the first day of beginning drawing we did scales. So some were even wash. So these are opportunities for even wash. But again, I want to make sure I leave white. So again, every step is a strategy. But right now I want to pick a couple petals to show you not just how to mix the color, but also how to use these techniques. I am going to focus on this area for a few reasons. This value mushes into this value. A big problem people do is they know this leaf goes in front of this leaf, so they draw it like they see it, as if they see it, but it's not true. It's hidden in a shadow that covers both. So if you start trying to get contrast where there isn't any, such as here, there's a lot of moments in here where you know intellectually that that is the edge behind, but you can't see it, but you put it there anyway. That's the problem. We're going to paint this exactly as the value is. The definition of local color is matching every single principle of color, every property. And that includes hue, which is the actual color, value, which is the light and dark of the color, which doesn't always involve adding black, by the way, intensity, which is the saturation of the color in terms of moving forward, moving back. Is it out of the tube? Is it mixed in an acrylic setting? In this case, is there water? Is there distant? Is it forward or back in terms of brightness? And then finally, temperature. So every time we mix one of these colors, not only are we looking to figure out the color, but also the lightness and darkness, but also the temperature, but also the saturation. It's very complex. In an acrylic class, you would put out your primaries, black, white, and brown. Brown is your key to all of this local color stuff. Brown is a mixture of every color on the wheel, or simplified, all three of the primaries. When you've worked with earth tones and neutrals before, you know that when mixed together, opposites create a complement neutral. And if you mix brown with any color on the wheel, you're going to get these beautiful earth tones that are found in nature. Most colors in actual nature, other than bright brights, are a version of those earth tones. So we're not only going to be dealing with the rendering, which if this gets messed up, you're going to have to do it again. Rendering is a huge thing. If it looks inaccurate, draw it again. So you've got that to deal with. Now you have to figure out how to mix and match these colors without it being regular paint. This is watercolor, so it has to be a transparent version of itself. Watercolor will never have the vigor and intensity and bravado of acrylic or colored paper or pastel. It is subtle. The closest medium to it would be ink. But it is so subtle that you actually have to settle for less to get the effect. You can build up in some spaces to brightness right on the edge. There are places to do that, but gouache is an example of neither here nor there.